You could feel it in the air. For weeks, the whispers had become a quiet hum, a rumor that was too good to be true, a hope that fans were almost afraid to believe in. And then, at the pay-per-view, in that dead-air moment between matches when the anticipation is thickest, the lights went black. A single, agonizing second of pure silence. Then, the music hit. Not a new theme, but the theme. The one that defined an era. The sound that followed wasn't a cheer. It was a physical explosion. A pressure change in the arena that felt like a shockwave. Phones shut up. Thousands of tiny lights trying to capture a myth. And through the smoke, a silhouette. She stepped out, not as a memory, but as a legend reborn. Fans were screaming, grasping the heads of the person next to them, tears welling in their eyes. In the front row, a grown man, wearing the t-shirt of a current champion, was openly weeping, his face pointed towards the ramp. He wasn't just seeing a performer, he was seeing his youth. He was seeing validation for years of loyalty. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a resurrection. The producers in the truck knew they were capturing lightning. Every camera zoomed in, catching the slight, knowing smile on her face as she drank in the noise. She hadn't just returned to the ring, she had returned to her throne. And 80,000 people were bowing. But behind the curtain, in the chaotic maze of hallways and production rooms, the sound was different. The roar of the crowd was a distant, muffled monster. In the gorilla position, the small tense area just before the ramp, the executives and the producers stared at their bank of monitors, speechless. They had orchestrated this. They had signed the contract, booked the jet, hidden her from view all day. They knew it was coming, but they had not anticipated the scale of this. They hadn't anticipated the sound, the sheer emotional weight of the moment they had unleashed. The headsets, usually alive with frantic chatter and cues, were momentarily silent. One producer simply removed his, rubbing his temples as if to process the new reality. Further down the hall, in the locker room, the atmosphere was funereal. The other performers, the ones who had to follow this, were watching on a small, flickering TV. The current champion, the woman who had carried the entire division on her back for the last 2 years, watched the screen without blinking. Her face was a mask of granite. While the arena was celebrating a return, she was witnessing an erasure. Her entire body of work, all the grueling matches and the thankless media tours, had just been eclipsed in 10 seconds by a ghost. She slowly stood up, walked to her travel bag, and began taping her wrists with violent precision. The legend was back. But the champion was waiting. By the time the broadcast had cut to commercial, the digital world was already breaking. It wasn't just a wrestling story, it was the story. Her name, a name that hadn't been professionally uttered in years, was trending #1 worldwide, above global politics, above blockbuster movie releases, above everything. News outlets that usually scoffed at sports entertainment were scrambling, their anchors trying to articulate to a mainstream audience why this specific return mattered so much. It was a cultural earthquake. Clips of the entrance filmed on shaky phones from the nosebleeds had already amassed millions of views, the distorted audio of the crowd's roar becoming the soundtrack to the internet. But this viral tsunami creates a new, suffocating pressure. The moment itself was perfect, a flawless cinematic masterpiece of surprise and nostalgia. The problem is, the moment is over. Now the comeback begins, and the comeback can never be as perfect as the return. The legend she had built, the one that existed in highlight reels and "Where Are They Now" articles, was pristine. By stepping back into that ring, she had put her entire, untouchable legacy on the line. The analysts, the skeptics, the podcasts, they were already sharpening their knives. Can she still go? Is this just for the money? She's not the same. The perfect return had just set her up for an impossible expectation. The next day, at the arena for the follow-up show, the entire backstage ecosystem was broken. The energy was different. It was heavy, paranoid. The return wasn't just a surprise, it was an occupation. The talent, the writers, the crew, everyone was now forced to navigate this new gravity well. Careers were suddenly in question. Storylines that had been planned for months were tossed in the trash. The entire hierarchy had been shattered. The current champion felt it most. She walked through the hall, and people who would normally chat with her now offered only a quiet, respectful nod before looking away. They weren't just looking at her. They were looking past her, towards the new, blinding sun that had just risen. The whispers started. I heard she has creative control. I heard her new contract is the biggest in company history. I guess we know who's main eventing the big show now. It was a poison. It was the corrosion of morale. The champion sat in the locker room, alone, meticulously lacing her boots. She hadn't been defeated in the ring. She had been defeated by a sound cue. She knew that the cheers for the icon were, in a way, boos for her. They weren't cheering for the future. They were cheering for the past. And she, the present, was suddenly irrelevant. The legend hadn't even spoken a word, and she had already dismantled the champion's confidence. The show is over. The private car has dropped her off. We are far from the 80,000 screaming fans. We are in the sterile, oppressive silence of a 5-star hotel room. The ringing in her ears from the crowd has finally faded, replaced by the low, mechanical hum of the air conditioner. Her iconic ring gear, the armor she wore for her rebirth, is tossed carelessly over a beige armchair. She stands in front of the full-length mirror, the makeup half wiped away, revealing the lines around her eyes that weren't there when she left. This is the moment the cameras never capture. The adrenaline is gone, and in its place is a profound, aching exhaustion and a vulnerability that borders on fear. The person in the mirror isn't the legend. Not yet. It's just a woman, older now, with more scars, both visible and unseen. The roar of the crowd is a terrifyingly distant echo. Doubt, the enemy of all great performers, creeps in from the shadows of the room. Can I still do this? Am I fast enough? Am I strong enough? The icon on the ramp was a performance. A magnificent one, but a performance nonetheless. This is the reality. The audience cheered for a memory. She now has the impossible task of becoming that memory, or disappointing the entire world. The silence of the hotel room is louder than the cheers ever were. Her phone buzzes on the polished wood of the nightstand. It's not the media. It's not the company executives. It's a video call from home. She forces a smile, straightens her back, and answers. A small face appears on the screen, her child. The child is excited, having been allowed to stay up late to see mommy on TV. But the questions that come are not about the legacy, or the championship, or the roar of the crowd. They are simple, sharp, and devastating. When are you coming home? Did you win? Why did you leave again? How do you explain to a 5-year-old that winning meant choosing to leave them? This is the unseen collateral damage of the comeback. The sacrifice isn't just the physical toll on her body. It's the missed birthdays. It's the bedtime stories told over a crackling hotel Wi-Fi connection. It's the profound, gnawing guilt of choosing the spotlight over the porch light. She holds the phone, her smile strained, promising she'll be home soon, knowing it's a lie. The road to the championship, the road this comeback demands, is long, and it leads directly away from this phone call. This is the part of the journey she dreads most, the quiet, impossible justification of her own ambition to the only people whose opinions truly matter. It's time for the first television show since the return. She walks through the backstage area, a place that was once as familiar as her own home, but it's not her home anymore. The halls are cleaner, the graphics are sharper, and the faces are new. She pushes open the door to the women's locker room. The chatter stops. Instantly. It's not the chaotic, loud, familiar room she remembers, filled with friends and rivals. It's a room full of young, hungry athletes who grew up with posters of her on their bedroom walls. They stop what they're doing. They offer her the best seat, the one nearest the showers. They call her ma'am. It's respect, but it's also distance. It's isolation. She is no longer one of the girls. She is a monument. The very camaraderie she missed, the sisterhood forged in shared rental cars and cheap motels that defined her early career, is gone. She is a veteran in a foreign land. They don't see the tired woman from the hotel room. They see the untouchable legend from the ramp. And in this business, you don't show weakness to a monument. You don't confide in it. You just look for cracks in its foundation. She sits down, alone, and begins to stretch, the silence in the room deafening. The music hits again. The pop is still loud, but the novelty is already gone. The shock has worn off. Now, it's business. She stands in the center of the ring, holding a microphone, the instrument of her trade. She begins to speak, to tell the fans why she's back. And then the other music hits, the champion's theme. The arena noise changes. It's not a unified roar. It's a divided rumble. The champion walks slowly, her title belt gleaming. She circles the icon, a shark examining a whale that has washed ashore. The promo that follows is electric, but not because of the scripted lines. It's electric because of what isn't said. The champion doesn't thank her for paving the way. She resents her for blocking the sun. "This is my ring now," the champion says, her voice tight with genuine, unscripted fury. "You're a legend, but legends are meant to stay in the past." And in that moment, the icon realizes the devastating truth. The crowd is split. A whole new generation of fans is cheering for their champion. They respect the legend, but they love the new guard. The comeback isn't a victory tour. It's a war for relevance. She didn't return to a kingdom that missed its queen. She returned to a kingdom that had already crowned a new one. We see her backstage, long after the tense confrontation in the ring. The show is over. She's not angry or shaken by the champion's words. She's calm, focused. An executive approaches, clapping her on the back, congratulating her on the great television they just made. She barely acknowledges him, her gaze fixed on her open equipment bag. She reaches inside, past the tape and the boots, and pulls something out. It's not a championship belt. It's not a contract. It's a photograph. Old, faded, the corners softened by time. The minimalist, animated style of our story would push in on this photo. It's her, years younger, barely an adult, her arm around another woman. A former wrestler, a mentor, perhaps a sister. Someone the audience has long forgotten. Someone whose career was cut short by injury or tragedy. Someone who never got their iconic moment. The return, the media chaos, the online pressure, the champion's anger. It's all just noise. The return wasn't for the fans, not really. It wasn't for the money, or even for the championship. It was a promise. A quiet, decades-old promise, made in a hospital room or a locker room, to the person in that picture. A promise that one day, their shared dream, their legacy, would stand in the main event of the biggest show of them all, even if she had to carry it there herself. And that's when we realized the truth. The iconic return was a lie. Not a malicious one, but a profound misunderstanding. We, the audience, thought we were witnessing the end of a story. We thought we were seeing the triumphant final chapter, the hero's last ride. We thought the return was the destination, but we were wrong. That night, the moment the smoke cleared and she stepped onto the ramp to that deafening roar, that wasn't an ending. It wasn't even a comeback. It was a prologue. The icon who left all those years ago is gone. The legend we cheered for is a memory, preserved in video packages. The woman who came back is someone new. She is slower, yes. But she is smarter. She is more cunning, and she is infinitely more dangerous, because she is no longer fighting for glory, or for fame, or for the approval of the crowd. She is fighting for something real. She is fighting for a ghost. The most iconic return in history wasn't a return at all. It was the birth of a final, brutal transformation. The story isn't about whether the legend can do it one more time. The story is about what she is willing to become and what she is willing to destroy to make sure that old, faded promise is finally kept.